All good.
All right, welcome. This is Financial Literacy with TC. I am your host, TC. I want to appreciate you guys for coming to another episode of Financial Literacy with TC. As I always say, you could choose any podcast in the world to listen to, but you chose to listen to mine. Today, I have a special guest, one of the great guys in the community of Pittsburgh, doing amazing things. But before I introduce him, I want to thank Nobleman Cigar Lounge for allowing Financial Literacy TC to be a part of the ability to share this podcast and this platform in their beautiful space. If you have not been to Wealth Wednesdays, that starts at 6 p.m. every Wednesday with our host, Brandon Rice. Please stop on down, check us out. Wealth Wednesdays is an opportunity for you to have fun, mingle, collaborate in a safe environment space just for Black people. You don't have to be Black to come, but it's a space that we can be proud of and be able to collaborate and talk about generational wealth that can change lives. And then before we get to my guest, I also want to take this time to make sure that if you have not paid attention to Financial Literacy with TC, we're doing great things. We're having great guests. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We definitely want to build this thing up to have Black representation about financial literacy. We also want to make sure it's a place where we can have people in our community highlighted and emphasized and put on the mainstream so they can start to really enhance what they're doing. So, with that being said, hit that subscribe button. But let's get into my guest. This man right here is someone I'm so proud of. He's doing amazing things in the community, amazing things in his own life. This is Sean Spencer. He is with an organization that, if you don't know, King's Mentoring, Future Kings Mentoring, my apologies. They are an organization that I've been following for probably a year now before I actually knew any of you gentlemen from the organization. But I want to give a shout out to Sean Spencer. He was able to join me. He is part of the organization's founding members, along with Terrell Galloway and Israel. I forget his last name.
Williams.
Williams, thank you. Israel Williams and Terrell Galloway, they couldn't be here today, but two other brothers that are doing phenomenal things in the community. They're really doing some of the things that we need for our young men, our youth. And with all that being said, I want to give it up to Sean Spencer, and I want to thank you for joining me, brother.
No, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and you look fly, bro. You look
No,
fly.
thank you. I appreciate that.
So I gotta start with the chain, man, because
Okay. What's up?
it's dope, man. It's dope.
No, I appreciate it.
So I see it says Future King.
Yes, sir.
So I know you are one of the founders of Future Kings Mentoring. So let's just segue into how it came about, because I know you didn't just wake up one day and have that chain. So,
You're right. So even with the chain, if y'all can't see it,
yeah, that thing nice.
this originally was a handcrafted design back when I was in high school,
Okay.
where I had a fist that was made of like ivory rock
Right.
and a plastic gold crown wired into it.
Right.
So very much there's been an evolution of going from almost from the bottom, now we're here where now I can actually afford something like this.
Right.
With that said, Future Kings Mentoring, it started just with Terrell saying, I don't want us in our friend group using the N word as a term of endearment.
I love that.
And he was, at that time, this is going back 10 years now, we were in high school at Alderdice, and he was listening to Kendrick Lamar's album To Pimp a Butterfly. It just released.
Yeah.
And he heard the lyric, well, one of the lyrics where Kendrick said "niggas," which is weird, coincidentally, where the N word is derived from. And he wanted to take power back from that word.
Right.
So first he's like, because niggas means Ethiopian king, and he was like, well, why not call each other niggas?
Right.
However, that doesn't roll off the tongue as well, right?
Right.
So what about king? Now, mind you, we was juniors, 11th grade in high school, and we weren't kings at that point, right? We were
Right.
16 years old. So Future King, I'll never forget it. He said that to me in the Alderdice cafeteria, and it stuck with me forever. The logo you see here,
Right.
this is my creation. I went home that day and made it.
Oh, that's what's
Right, and that logo on our website, it very much, that's where it started.
Right.
And we spent time and years throughout high school and early years of college really figuring out what does it mean to be a future king.
Right.
And really, and if you go on our website, you'll see some of our tenets: being a leader, compassion, selfless, humility, knowing your voice, your identity, and so on, to
Right.
make up what it means to be a future king.
Right.
And so really what a future king means is being the best version of yourself, right? Whatever that looks like for you is what that looks like for you, but that's just all it is. It's
Right.
not nothing to overthink. It's not some status you're trying to achieve.
Right.
It's who you want to become, what you want to do, and being successful at it.
Right.
It was loud. With that said, we graduated from Allderdice High School. Terrell went to Tuskegee University to study mechanical engineering,
Nice.
and I went to Duquesne University to study journalism. So we remained in contact, we remained as friends, but he transferred to the University of Pittsburgh around 2019,
Okay.
and we linked up, we connected, and he called me up January 2019 and said,
Right.
let's do the mentor program.
Right.
So we spent the first year really building out, our business plan, mission, vision, values,
Right.
what we want to teach the students, the tenets I was just referring to, all those different things to really figure out what do we want our students to walk away from. And we brought on Israel Williams after that as well.
Okay.
And the rest is history. We became
Right.
incorporated April 2020. That is our Founders Day. And we have been 4 years strong, starting as a virtual program in the middle of the pandemic to now be fully in person, serving about 20 Black and brown youth in Pittsburgh.
Hey, man, congratulations on that.
I
for
appreciate
sure.
it. Thank you.
So you said a lot there, but I kind of want to backtrack to the first part because it is Black History Month.
Sure.
So I was very intentional about wanting to have you, Terrell, and Israel on. Hey, one of y'all is just great for me.
Sure.
And one of the things that I really love, because for me, this isn't only a platform for me to give people financial education, but it's also a platform for me to learn and get better educated on things that I don't know.
For sure.
So when you start talking about using the N word, obviously when we look at Black History Month, our ancestors, and without going too much down that rabbit hole,
Sure.
even though we could because it's Black History Month,
Sure.
just based on you guys, coming to an agreement that what we need to really come up with another way to show a term of endearment about this word. And then your whole mindset and philosophy, and y'all were just kids at the time. I mean, young adults, but still.
No, we were kids.
Yeah.
We were definitely kids.
So I just want to say kudos to you guys because when we look in our community, that word is thrown around so flagrantly, and it's one thing when you're with your boys and things of that nature in your own circle, but I'm seeing it used in the corporate world.
Right.
That, and I'm from the corporate world, as are you. You know.
For sure.
That's you get yourself in some trouble when you don't understand the rooms you're in, who's around. You get some doors closed on you because you're not speaking in a way that fits the environment that you're in, your surroundings. For me, I'm like, as Black people, we should want to be chameleons. Obviously, we're more comfortable being around our people, talking the way we talk. But there's times when you need to tighten up, button up, be politically correct.
Absolutely.
And some of our people, from that standpoint, don't understand that, and they don't necessarily embody that. So when I hear you guys say that you came together and was like, yeah, you know what, we're going to make sure that we start teaching, to use a better word of endearment, future kings, and then giving that history on how you guys came to that mindset is phenomenal. So what led you guys to? Obviously, I know the pandemic is when you guys started to formulate and get everything together. Was it a lack of, around that time we couldn't go out, we couldn't do much? What was it that really drove you guys to start trying to make sure, the time is now?
It's a great question. The reality is that we knew how to start it earlier. We did it before the pandemic.
Right.
All of us came from single parent households, just us and our moms.
Okay.
I grew up personally without my father. My father was killed when I was 10 years old.
Sorry.
No worries. And then all of us just had our moms, and our moms were very intentional about putting us in programs in Pittsburgh that were going to benefit us, being around other Black male mentors, as well as give us a different view of where we could go. Right. So one of the programs I was a part of was Journey to Medicine, which is from the Gateway Medical Society, where their whole program ideology was to address the disparity of Black male physicians in the medical field, because there's only 2% of them.
Right.
Now, I'm not a doctor. That doesn't mean that it wasn't impacted.
Right.
They taught me a lot about life skills. To your point, how to be a chameleon,
right,
how to network, how to write your resume, how to interview, and so on, where they gave me the tools to be successful.
Right.
And without even saying it, the value of giving back to the young brothers and sisters coming up behind you.
Right.
And so one of the things we always say is the best way to pay it back is to pay it forward.
Right.
So we're very intentional in that we recognize there's a need for it, but it's a duty.
Correct.
I always say that your duty for living here on this earth is the service you do for others. It's a quote from somebody, and I forget. I don't want to mess up the name.
Right.
But that's the truth to me. I live by that because none of the stuff here matters, you know?
Right.
And no matter how much money you make, how much material you got, it's about the human connection, right? It's about the impact you have on somebody, because all they're going to remember is the memories you have when you're gone.
Right.
Not going to remember how much money you got or nothing.
Right.
So very much intentional with wanting to make a difference in the lives of other people.
Right.
I will also say that for me personally, like growing up, there was a lot of loss, right?
Yeah.
Going back to my father and then my peers getting killed, and even as an adult, some of my students have gotten killed. So there's that level of that community trauma and that grief where let's channel that energy into something that's going to be proactive and preventive, rather than sitting here saying, damn, why ain't nothing happening?
Right.
Why does this keep happening? No, everyone has the power within their own little bubble to make a difference. So and I think that's where I take it from.
No, and truth be told, as I hear you speak, I'm proud because you just recently graduated from Duquesne, correct?
University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, University of Pittsburgh. I'm sorry. Who got?
I went to Duquesne for
undergrad.
Went
to Duquesne for undergrad. My apologies.
No worries.
University of Pittsburgh. So congrats to you, man, for that. And what I love about your resume, Terrell's and Israel's, your resumes are so well profound, and you guys do a lot, not just for your community, but what you've done with your individual lives.
Sure.
So now when you talk to these young men, no matter where they're at in life, you can have your personal testimonies and situations, and you can relate to what they're going through or about to go through, and because you guys are still, correct me if I'm wrong, in the midst of your guys' journeys on an individual level, and that's so profound because now when we have older generations, sometimes they can't relate and they're not transparent enough to deal with the younger generation. But just seeing how you guys operate, watching some of the videos when I was on the website today, I'm like, man, these guys are very relatable, transparent, and I try to embody some of that in the teachings I do with organizations and schools and nonprofits, because at the end of the day, the message can be, the most important thing, but if the messenger isn't relatable and transparent enough to talk to the generation, then it's like going right over their head.
That's right. No.
So if you could just speak to that a little bit.
No, absolutely. One of the things that I think is our differentiator when it comes to other organizations in the city is that I'm 25 years old.
Right.
Like it wasn't that long ago I was in high school. It wasn't that long ago I was in college. So, and not to mention, especially being in Pittsburgh, I grew up with a single mom.
Right.
A lot of our students have the single parent, no dad, no wife.
Right.
I grew up with trying to figure out who I want to be and what I want to do.
Right.
I grew up being the only black person in class in these advanced classes, and they're going through the simulations about who am I with my identity.
Right.
So with that said, we meet them where they're at. So all of our workshops are tailored using analogies, so that it hits home for them more than as much as possible, so that they get the message.
Right.
For example, our students love Marvel. They love the Avengers. So we did a whole workshop about Tony Stark. And then, at the beginning of the Avenger arc, he was very selfish, very narcissistic.
Absolutely.
But by the end, he gave his whole life up. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah.
But
it's been years now. You ain't seen it. Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, at the end of the series or the phase or whatever, he gave his whole life.
Right.
So we used that to teach about selflessness and compassion.
I love that. Yeah.
One of our trademark workshops is talking about Lion King, because everyone loves Lion King, right? And talking about Simba's journey from cub to king, and using some of the scenes in that movie to talk about the lessons he went through, about his identity, about being wronged, about running away from responsibilities, and talk about the students and say, have you been in this situation before?
Right.
Have you been around a Timon and Pumbaa where they're not really your friends, you need to be around, and you're running away from your responsibilities and all that?
Right.
So really just emphasizing, trying to meet them where they're at to best meet their needs so they can get it.
Right. When I love that, and I love that because I'll be honest, when you talk about The Lion King, that was a movie that, when you were in your youth, you were just happy to see lions talking.
Yes.
And most of us, I'll speak for myself, didn't really get what that movie was about until I got older to understand. You know what I mean? Because now we're talking about deep intimate feelings that as a kid you're just like, oh, this. And then, or when you talk about the Marvel movies, you just looking at the action. You like the heroes. They were who you looked up to when you were growing up.
Absolutely.
But again, that message may not always resonated with every single person who saw that movie. So to use those analogies and bring them to the youth and bring it to like, hey, this is how he was, and make it correlate to some of the people that are heroes that they care about and people they look up to. That's very smart.
No, because you have to meet them where they're at.
Right.
I've worked, so you saw my resume.
Yeah.
I worked for the Pittsburgh Promise, and I worked at a school.
Right.
I worked at Pittsburgh Milan 6 to 12, and there's such a divide between teachers, students,
Right.
parents, sometimes even administration,
Right.
even the community at large, the school board,
Right.
and and to me, you have to break down those silos.
Right.
And you only start by just being yourself.
Right.
And being your most authentic self, because kids are good at knowing when you bullshitting them or not.
Absolutely.
And so being genuine in your approach,
right,
and in your care and your delivery, and intentional with what you want to do is so impactful.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
impactful.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the jobs you had. Your current role, because I know you just got a promotion. We were just talking maybe a few weeks.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Kind of transitioning again. For
gotcha.
Sure. Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar, just talk a little bit about your position, because I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it justice. So just talk about your position and your role with your company.
Sure. So I work for a tech company called Unisys, and I currently work for a transformation team in a tech company, and I do a whole bunch of stuff to say the least.
Right.
I act as chief of staff right now for the senior vice president,
Okay.
which has been a very interesting learning curve.
Right.
I also I support different initiatives across the business unit where working strictly with senior level leadership.
Right.
And that's been a journey in and of itself, even going back to last year when I started, because I'm the youngest person in the room by a long shot. Some of the vice presidents I work with have grandkids my age. And that's just like, wow, right? The generation gap. I'm the only black person in the room, but that's just that goes without being stated.
Right.
And really trying to, something you said earlier, navigate those spaces, be that chameleon, and also find that balance where I'm comfortable being who I am in that space as well.
Sure.
Has been a challenge, right? Because I'll get a code switch all the time. And so one of my favorite examples I like to give is when I'm at work, it's for sure.
Right.
When I'm with my friends, it's for sure.
Right.
You know what I mean? And really having to do that and be intentional about it, because they do see me. I mean, they do see me as someone who's an asset, and I appreciate that. But I also have to recognize it's like pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And because even the minor mistakes feel amplified.
Right.
Because you don't want to make them, because you are the only black person around. It even goes back to when I was in school, where if I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do well in the test, are you just that lazy black kid?
Right.
And really trying to, and that's always stuck with me.
Right.
Where that I have to work twice as hard. I have to be extra perfect.
Right.
Because if I don't, I could get fired. Even though that might be just a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Right.
But that can be a reality depending on where you're at for some people.
For sure. No, and kudos to you on your position and what you've done and continue to do, because one of the first speaking engagements I had this month was for a program we did called Meet the Funders. And one of the first things out my mouth, and I didn't realize it until I was saying it, is I'm a black branch manager. And because while I don't want to necessarily go down, all the years in history of, Black history, it's more or less, taking pride and having extra pride in saying, you know what, I'm a black this or I'm a black that, because if we keep it real, let's go 40, 50, 60 years ago, those are who we are, and what roles we have now were not common. And
sure.
When we think about, until this day, I mean, there's still not a ton of black branch managers in banking. Sure. There's still not, I'm sure there's probably still not a ton of people in your job role and your title. And while we have seen growth and improvement, obviously, because we are in our roles, it's still, the numbers are still little and minute. And we want to start seeing at some point the next 30, 40 years, my hope would be that now we're not even saying I'm black this or I'm black that, the first this, first that. It's really
Yeah.
just now those numbers have grown, the growth is there, and we see that people have paved the way for us to be able to be in these rooms and in these roles. We've paved the way to see these numbers grow as opposed to one or two in any industry.
That's right. That's what it's
And
all about.
for sure. So kudos to you. Kudos to myself,
For
because
sure.
we
Thank you.
definitely need to be in these roles, so that way the youth who you serve, the future kings, can see and be inspired, not just thinking about football, basketball, rapping as their only means of getting out of their situation.
For sure.
Because the typical stereotype, that's all we do, play sports.
Yeah.
That's all we do.
Yeah. No, I mean, two of my biggest inspirations was Tupac Shakur, Malcolm X.
Right.
And the biggest things, one of the biggest things I learned from both of them is we need to think. And so in our program, we unintentionally but intentionally, they don't realize it.
Right.
We make them think.
Right.
Critically think about who they are and who they want to be.
Yes.
Where do they see, even on our interview process, we asked them, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? What do you want to do? I can't tell you. So Terrell's an engineer by trade, him and Israel.
Right. Shout out to Terrell and Israel.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure we keep highlighting them.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times black kids will say, I never met an engineer until they met them.
Right.
You know what I mean? They never met a doctor until they met another friend who's in med school. Right? They don't see this.
Yep.
They only see what's only around them, right? So
that's in their neighborhood or environment.
That's right. Absolutely. So that representation is everything, and really not even just representation, but bringing the community together around them and bringing that village together is so impactful. So we've been, again, bringing, like, for example, if we have a panel this Sunday, we're bringing in a financial advisor, a University of Pittsburgh professor, a nonprofit foundation leader in the city.
All black?
All black.
Okay.
All black men, too. And another guy that we just met from 100 Black Men in Western PA. Just bringing in
which you're a member of, and
yes.
I recently became a member of.
For sure. Congratulations. For sure. Absolutely. And just bringing in these different faces, say, yo, you can do this. We brought in lawyers before.
Right.
We brought in one of my closest friends is a semi-professional basketball player, just so they can see in real time what the grind is really like.
Right.
And that you may not always make it to the league, but it doesn't mean you can't have a career either.
Absolutely.
But do understand the work it takes, even if it's basketball or otherwise. You gotta work hard for whatever you want to do.
So the information on this weekend's event, is that open attendance or?
It's not open attendance.
Not open attendance.
So that panel is going to be just for our students and our parents.
Gotcha.
However, we do have our fundraiser, so I can definitely plug that. So on April 14th, we're having our Kings Court 3-on-3 basketball tournament. We're looking for players and we're looking for sponsorships. If anyone's open and wanting to participate and volunteer in any way, feel free to connect with us. You can find more information on our website and social media.
Yep. Actually, it's a good time to tell people about the website and social media. Definitely on Facebook, I've already liked. And then how they can get on. What's the website for you guys?
www.featurekingsmentoring.org.
Yep. It's very simple.
And Instagram is feature_kings_mentoring. And Facebook, you can find us. If you find the fist in the crown, you're there. We'll just say that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So your youth, the youth that you target, the age groups, I know they vary, but typically, correct me if I'm wrong, we look at more middle school, high school?
So as of right now, we've done middle school and high school.
Okay.
And it's been interesting. So we originally started as only like 8th grade and up.
Okay.
But as we've seen the need for middle school programming, we had to open it up more because more parents were asking us, or telling us, there's nothing for my 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade year old son.
Right.
And now did more market research, you see it's a lot of elementary after school programming. Yeah. So there's a ton of high school programming, but none for middle school.
Right.
But even in this year, it's been a learning process for us to see how can we best handle both, because it's different dynamics with high school and middle school you got to manage.
And I honestly, to hear you say that is crazy to me, because to me, middle school would be the perfect time, because one, you're coming from adolescent and you're getting into that transition of young adulthood, and then from middle school you got to start trying to transition into what adulthood is going to look like for you. So that middle, you're like really in the middle of, you're still learning yourself to eventually got to think about what the long term game is going to look like for you. So why not have more resources for your middle school kids to find and get some of those answers figured out? So that's crazy to me. So
absolutely. I mean,
well needed.
No, for sure. I mean,
that's just my take on it, though.
No,
but, you know.
no, you're absolutely right. It's insane, but it's also interesting because Pittsburgh is a mecca for nonprofits.
Yes.
There's, I believe, 2,000 or 3,000 in the area.
Yes.
And there's 200 serving youth.
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10, especially if you're serving Black youth, we're all serving the same kids. It's interesting. It's very interesting being in this landscape.
Yeah. Which I love you brought that up because you led me to a question that I had for you, so I might as well jump to it now.
Go ahead.
Knowing that there's a lot of nonprofit organizations, because I've helped a few people who've had ideas form them.
Sure.
And just over the years, what I've learned and thought of is a lot of times, people want to start a nonprofit because they think their idea, their thought is the solution to a plethora of problems.
Yeah.
And while their ideas may be good, the execution, they don't have that part mapped out.
Sure.
And then if they do have the it's rare you find an organization that has it all put together to be able to have the idea, meet the requirements, identify who needs it, execute, and get it all mapped out. So I guess what I'm asking is, as you guys have experienced your journey, 4 years now?
Yes, sir.
4 years now. Have you come across organizations or worked with organizations who you guys have tried to, for lack of a better word, mentor, use as a guidance to help you guys steer your path to the, obviously, like you said, there's so many organizations. Is there anything you guys like from some organizations or didn't like from others? Just like, what does that look like for you guys as far as you navigating your way for your organization?
No, for sure. So I've been working in nonprofits since 2018.
Okay.
And so Terrell and Izzy in different capacities, they've worked for nonprofits in different ways as well. Yeah. So we've had experience working with leaders in these organizations. I worked for the Pittsburgh Promise, where Salim, who's a major player in the city because of the prominence of the organization, just learning his leadership style, how that organization is structured, all the way down to I worked for Mode Mentor Program for a couple of years. So to answer your question, we all learned what to do, what not to do, based on our experience or how we would do something differently. Not to take away anything from those organizations because they're all great and they're all serving a need, but you learn from observing just as you learn from doing. And I think we've done our best to try to replicate what we liked or pair a twist on what we don't and keep it pushing. Yeah, man. Shout out to them for sure. Yeah.
And I mean, truth be told, some of the most successful executive directors that I've known and then have followed what they do in the community, what I would say they've done successfully is they've delegated and filled roles beautifully for certain programs that they want to do. And then they're more of the face of the organization as far as getting funding, grants, sponsorships, what have you. But they've also done an amazing job recognizing who their team is.
That's right.
And, allowing their team to lift the whole organization. Yeah. Obviously, they're the people we see on a regular basis, but they always give it back to their team. And a lot of times when I see new and up and coming organizations, they don't seem to understand the gravity of how important that is. Because some of your major nonprofits, and I don't want to emphasize any right now because I want to make sure the focus is on your organization, but that's just kind of from outsider looking in. That's what I noticed about some of the most successful executive directors out there right now.
Not just nonprofits, but businesses, period.
For sure.
Like we had an article just released, and one of the tips we gave was
that the one for the Kendrick Lamar?
Yep.
Okay, I read that one.
Thank you.
It's a good read too. Anybody who follows me, look on my LinkedIn or just reach out to me personally, and I'll share that article for you.
For sure. Thank you. Your team is your biggest asset, your biggest downfall. Right. That was something the organization struggled with for a while because we had a situation occur with someone that we trusted took advantage of us. In the beginning, early on in the beginning, before we was even officially a 501c3, and that made us very hesitant in terms of who we brought around us and therefore we reinvented the wheel so many times. However, we've been blessed to expand our team, to recognize what we're great at and what we're not great at, and to bring people on who support the mission, support what we're doing,
Right.
help us put us in a position to be greater. And that's been super of value.
Right.
To your point, knowing how to delegate, and no one does it on their own, right? You
Absolutely.
need a good team around you.
The task is too tall to.
Absolutely. Especially for the work we're doing,
Right.
trying to low key, not even low key, high key. Our root cause is, to me, when it comes to our community,
Right.
one of my favorite quotes of Tupac Shakur is, "Our future is our confidence and self-esteem." How we view ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how we treat each other.
Right.
If you look on social media, if you look in the world itself, at least in this country, we are known for having negative stereotypes about us in terms of how we disrespect each other. Hell, we kill each other, right? I mean, and that also goes back to mental health. That also goes back to generational wealth, and that kind of stuff as well.
Right. No, and truth be told, one of the things that I love about it being Black History Month is the fact that when we think about where we came from as a country, we were already at a disadvantage when we got here. So from the standpoint of when we talk about financial literacy, because I know that's one of the things you guys start with our youth. When we talk about money and generational wealth, things of that nature, we already were behind the eight ball for a lot of different factors.
Right.
So while we have our white counterparts who are being two-parent homes given, they already have money already set aside for them before they even get out the womb. Or once they're out the womb, they already got their credit being built. Just all these different strategies and concepts that are already in place for white families as opposed to Black families. I always found astounding. Even though coming from my own family, we were not always set up to succeed. And now that we know the secrets and now that we know what things we can implement, it still seems like there's a gap between previous generations, the generation now, and then what the future generation is going to look like. And I'm always thinking about, well, the information's known now with the technology. So why don't I still see numbers in our favor as far as bridging the wealth gap? And I just want to know if you've thought about that and how do you guys factor that in when you're talking to our youth?
That's a great question. Yes, we've thought about it and we've been intentional about it. Repeat the question one more time in like one sentence.
I know I said a lot. So just basically, how do you guys teach finance? I guess if I had to sum it up simplistically, how do you guys go about teaching financial literacy, knowing some of the things that that generations from yesteryear struggle with, current generation, and then our future generations?
Sure. So there was another part you said about why is there still a gap, and I want to.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I do want to touch on that. I'll touch on that second. Yes. So we teach our students basic financial literacy: budgeting, saving, credit, investing.
Yes. Say that in the camera for me, please.
Budgeting, saving, investing, credit.
Yes.
We teach them basic understanding of what it is and how to do it.
As do I.
And so the power is that something I learned in high school or realized in high school was that racism and capitalism are interchangeably linked.
Yes.
You can't have capitalism without racism in this country because capitalism thrives off somebody to exploit. Historically, Black people, anyone actually who isn't a white collar, straight white man has been exploited.
Absolutely.
Women, Black people, Native Americans, even going back all the way back then. I mean, historically, there has to be that level of exploitation.
Right.
So when you give those keys to the students that we work with, now we're teaching them, okay, you can start investing at 16 through an app called Greenlight.
Right.
And the parents, you can do that with your son with a Codelette account. You can have an Acorn account where you can do passive investing. That's what I do personally.
Correct.
You can have a high yield savings account where you put your 3 to 6 months of expenses saved away just in case something happens. And on top of that, it's earning anywhere from 3 to 5% interest on top of that, where you're making money off of it passively.
Correct.
That's how you start to talk, right? Your question about why is there still a gap, even though with the advancements of technology, why is there, right? You can Google search a lot of this stuff, because just because you give someone the fishing rod doesn't mean they know how to fish.
Exactly.
Sometimes even as simple as I don't even know what to ask.
Right.
That can be one way, but the other thing is that what are we valuing? I think some communities laugh at us because we do have all the access and resources, but we don't use
it.
them. And
Or if we use it, we're using it for the wrong thing.
or we're using it for the wrong reason. And that comes back to, as families, how are we raising our kids?
Right.
How are we raising ourselves?
Right.
How are we empowering ourselves? You made a comment earlier about sometimes people start businesses and nonprofit because they want to be the superhero in the story.
Right.
It's not all about that. I'm very future thinking in terms of a lot of stuff I do is not meant for me. It's for my family. It's for my kids when I have one.
Right.
And so,
likewise.
yeah, for sure, because it's not going to be about me at the end of the day. It's about
Right.
how can I put my kids in a position to be successful when I'm no longer here.
Right.
That's like having a life insurance policy. Life insurance is the number one way to gain wealth.
Yes, you hear that?
I mean,
Because we've had episodes on life insurance, trying to say something to jog people's mind.
And it's not just getting a life insurance policy for when you die.
Correct.
You can have a living life insurance policy where you can put money into it and take it out, and it's tax free.
Correct.
And it can make money on top of it. Correct. There's ways to do it, but it starts with also, though, to something you said earlier, we're also at a disadvantage. It's hard to do that when you got kids, when you got bills, when you got responsibilities that are going to eat away at your finances already before you can even think about a savings plan, before you can think about investing. So, and that's hard.
And I love that because everything we're talking about can come full circle. So when you talk about, and I'm going to start with the last point you just said, which is a lot of people in our community have family struggles, trials and tribulations that they have to overcome.
Sure.
And what I love about what I do, and as what I try to do with my day-to-day job as a banker, is be transparent with people. And I say, you know what, you tell me you don't want to rent, you want to buy a house, but you want to buy a house that you can't afford based on the level of income I know you have.
Sure.
So instead of trying to shine you on and say, oh, there's all these resources out there, which there are, but you still need to have a level of income to get the things you say you want.
That's right.
So when we talk about it's simple to say, oh, let me just get a better job. But then, you might not have the education for the job you want.
Or the
experience.
Yeah.
Or, there's so much other things we have to deal with racism.
Right.
So why don't we work on your development skills, your people skills? Let's figure out what actually hinders you from being qualified for the job that pays $70,000, $80,000, and let's try to strategically implement. Hey, you know what? Yeah, you might not be able to afford to go to college right now, but do you know that Pitt, Duquesne, and a lot of these major universities offer free workshops or free webinar? Or they do a lot of free stuff.
I mean, I tell everyone this: YouTube University is free.
That too.
I mean, but that's the hard part, because now that's asking the person to discipline themselves to say, I'm going to sit here and watch this hour-long video about whatever I'm interested in. Take notes, understand.
And little Johnny got football practice. Little Johnny got this. Little Johnny got that. Yeah. So knowing that this could possibly help my future and help little Johnny's future, you know what? Get little Johnny, his football is important. So it's more important than, that long-term, that short-term gratification is more important than long-term thinking and long-term strategy. So, and again, I'm not saying, it's something that we all haven't struggled with or will struggle with, but
Absolutely.
It's really, hard when people don't think about things that they can do, or they might think about it and they don't have the discipline, because it goes back to all that.
Absolutely.
So awesome conversation. One of the things that I love about what you guys have done and will continue to do is put, some of the main programs on the forefront of, helping our young men understand the values that they're going to need growing up. What are some of the things, because I know you mentioned the 3-on-3 basketball, what are some of the programs you guys are thinking about implementing even more or enhancing what you already have? If you guys have thought about, how to enhance what you're already doing or adding
for
things.
sure. No, for sure. This is all if we have funding, of course.
Correct. Yeah. Which at some point you will.
Yeah.
I already know.
I appreciate that. Number one, we operate weekly on Sundays.
Okay.
We want to expand our programming to throughout the week after school.
Okay.
Number two, we recently started our entrepreneurship program this year, where the students will learn about business and also start learning how to run a t-shirt printing business.
Okay.
And so we're actually at the fundraiser, they're going to be selling those student-made t-shirts, which is going to be really nice. we've really, with the funding we have received, we've really enhanced some of our STEM programming.
Okay.
So one of the things we did, we bought something called Spiro robots for students to learn how to do coding and play with the robots and all that.
Okay.
Something else we implemented this year is life skills.
Right.
So, of course, financial literacy is a life skill, right? But
Right.
also how to change a tire,
Yeah.
how to change your oil,
Yeah.
how to do laundry.
Yeah.
What if the laundry machine break and you need to fix it? How to put up drywall, how to put up a shelf. Because these are life skills that are not being taught in school no more, like it was when my mom, who's 2 generations older than me, she learned all that because the trades were in back then. Now the trades is a forgotten art. Even though for those who are looking for a way to change their life, trades is the way to go. Because the people who were doing the trades for 40, 50 years are starting to retire, and there is high demand for those people who do carpentry, trucking, painting, electrician, all of that. And the schooling does not cost a lot and will not take no more than 18 months at the most.
A lot of them training programs are offering it to you for free while being paid.
Yes.
Just knowing that they need to feel that. Yep.
And I was interested in trucking business. I was doing research recently, and you can pull in 100K, 200K a year easily. Right. Granted, you won't be home all the time, but you can make a living.
Right.
And you can definitely make a lucrative living if you know what you're doing.
For sure. Yep. No, and that's awesome because when I think about some of the things you just said, that is pivotal to helping young men find and court women. Me and my wife just did an episode for Valentine's Day last week called Budgeting While Married. And one of the things that she gave me praise on is just being a man that is providing and doing, I can do handyman things. I don't prefer to, but
time is money.
Time is money, correct. And then there was an instance where she had a flat tire. I was able to come be her knight in shining armor and help her change her tire. So these are things that young men should learn and develop. Absolutely. So that way, when you're courting a woman who doesn't value, you having a fancy chain, fancy car.
It's not just about that. Yeah, it's just material.
They see, oh, this man can provide and take care and be my knight, white shining armor. That's what, when you listen to women who have substance and value, that's just some of the things that they highlight about their man, as opposed to the material things they have. They like to see that, oh, he can help me and build and do these things. They like those things that help enhance, not only the relationship, but, the future.
That's right. Being a provider isn't just financial.
Correct.
Having intellect.
Yeah.
Being able to do something. I mean, being there when they need you. Right. That's all valuable things. Oh, yeah. And being a provider is not just for your woman, it's also being as a man for your boys, for your family, for your mother and all that.
Yep.
And that's all part of it.
Absolutely.
And in my instance, a lot of my work is just for the community. So trying to be the best person I can be to have an impact on someone else so they can be better.
Right.
Like a standard I always say is if I make 1 million this lifetime, God willing, if my students ain't making 10, I failed them.
Right.
Because that's where we're trying to go.
Right.
And that's how we make the difference.
Absolutely. And that's crazy because when you think about individuals in our communities who are pouring in our youth, I sense real genuine. I've met Terrell once. I've never met Israel, but every time I've had conversations with you and Terrell, I see the genuine. I see, this isn't something you guys do as a hobby. This is something in 4 years have shown. Because based on, what I've seen, I'm like, damn, they doing the damn thing. So kudos to you on that. Just some of the relationships you guys have leveraged, or some of the relationships you guys are working on with other organizations, other things that you envision this in, 2 to 3 years, 5 years. Have y'all thought about that? Because I know a lot of my success has been expedited and been exponential because of relationships I forged with people in the community. Are there any relationships like that right now, or is there any you guys are working on, or just what is future Kings mentoring looking like 2, 3 years, 5 years from now? To bring that question.
Sure. First of all, big shout out to the Boys and Girls Club Western PA for letting us use their location. Big shout out to Gale Medical Society for our relationship right now, working with their students.
Nice.
Big shout out to WDGA out of Monroeville for allowing us to work with their students as well.
Relationships.
With that said, that was one of our biggest issues because of the pandemic, we were in the house.
Right.
But it don't matter if you're doing good work if no one knows you're doing it.
Exactly.
And so
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here. And so we've been really intentional, especially in the last like 6 months or so, in the last year, about getting our faces out there and people knowing who we are, and people seeing the work that we're doing, so that we can leverage those relationships and have a mutual beneficial relationship that will benefit our students as well as benefit them. Case in point, we were invited to the GPMP Summit. Shout out Ashley Priori for setting that up for us.
Congrats.
And we were speakers at the event.
Nice.
And we made so many great relationships with different organizations.
Right.
Current relationship right now is with Carnegie Mellon University with their information systems department. Nice. We're working with a student team of consultants to help our organization be better at the back end, because we don't have time to do it no more.
Right.
How the article got published from the public source, I met the executive director at that event.
Nice.
And that's how I was able to make the connection there to get the story written out.
Right.
I mean, that has been the biggest thing. It's not only developing those relationships, but maintaining them, pouring into them, having consistent meetings with them as well, right? And really trying to be intentional about how can we make this worse? How can we make this better? Yes. How can we find other ways to work together, right? So, spot on.
Yeah,
spot on.
What I love is, because as our relationship, we've known each other for several months now. My goal is to be intentional. Once I have a better understanding of your guys' mission and vision, I want to be a huge supporter. So then, as we form our own relationship, I'll be like, you know what? Hey, I know some relationships. I know, obviously, my employer, it's a financial institution. I want to make sure I'm getting the material in front of them.
Sure.
And then I have relationships at other financial institutions. So I want to make sure I'm helping. While I can't eloquently speak about the organization to the level you guys can,
sure,
but I want to make sure I'm passing along relationships I've forged and be a vouch that, what, these guys are doing amazing work. Here's proof in the pudding. They need this, they need that. And you can only do that by being out in the forefront, letting people know about what you need, where you guys are. And you guys have been doing a phenomenal job doing that. So shout out to y'all.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool. So last question I want to get you out here on, when you think about where you've come from, where you're at, and now if you've thought about where you're going, do you take time? And this is more like if you were, I hear a lot of professional athletes, Robert, get asked this question, and I've never personally thought about it myself, but I wonder if you have. Just have you taken time to think about the journey from, everything you talked about your past to where you're currently at right now, and then have you thought about what your future looks like? Do you take moments in your life to really, digest and think about those things? Because I know I hadn't until recently when I'm like,
sure,
oh man, because I'm always thinking about my future, but I've never really taken time to reminisce about where I come from, what I've been through, and now I'm living in this moment. There's times I don't even really take time to live in the moment, and then I'm always thinking about my future. So it's like I don't do all three. And I guess I was curious if you've done that, because I'm, you're 25.
Yes, sir.
I'm 34, so it's like, here's a perspective where I'm like, I wonder, do people of our generation, take time to reflect on the past, present, and future?
I'll speak for myself when I say it can be hard.
Yeah.
Because similar to you, things are always going.
Yeah.
And you're always on to the next thing.
Yep.
Like, and that's where sometimes I don't always take enough time to pat myself on the back.
Right.
I'm also.
Yeah, because that's what you've done is, there's not many we can look to and say, he's done that, all right?
Yeah, and I'll sit here and tell you I still haven't done enough yet.
Correct.
And that's where.
Correct.
That's the curse, I call it, right?
Yeah.
Is that I don't feel like I'm there yet.
Right.
And that's because of the standard I hold myself to.
Right.
I'm also incredibly self-critical of who I am.
Right.
So every time I make a mistake, I'm like, damn, I fucked up, right? Yeah. But like at the same time, though, yes, because the journey is the most important part.
Yeah.
And so like, especially stuff that happened that really affected me that was negative, I always hold that.
Right.
Because sometimes a lot of it's motivation. It's challenging that energy. The people that said, oh, you shouldn't do that or talk stuff about it or whatever. Like, I hold that. I hold that to my heart.
Yeah.
Like, because now I'm motivated because you try to prove you wrong.
Right.
But I also think about some of the trauma I've been through and seen. And it's just like, no, it's for them too.
Right.
It's for the people that I've lost. It's for the students I've lost, because you have to keep going. So I'm always
Absolutely.
reminded about that.
Yeah.
But it's yes and no.
I got you.
Yes and no,
Yeah, and
for sure.
it
Yes
was
and no,
kind
for
of a
sure.
spirit of my own question, because I was really thinking about if I've done this in my life.
Yeah, for sure. No,
And hearing that, you're obviously about almost 9 years younger than me.
yeah.
Putting that thought in is kind of why I led with that,
Yeah.
because you're doing phenomenal things and have done already, but you're also like, damn, I got 10 more years, 20 more years where I
Yeah.
could be doing a ton more phenomenal things.
And that's where there's a value of mentorship. There's a
Correct.
value of having. Oftentimes, as adults, we forget to get more mentors.
Yeah.
You get mentors for kids, but not when you're 20s and your
Oh,
30s and all
yeah,
that.
for sure.
One of the best advice I got was, your 30s are better with more money. You know what I mean? And
I realized that too late. I'll be honest.
yeah, no.
I was like, I wish I had took, and I didn't have mentors around when I was,
Yeah.
20. I was just making it up as I went. So
I feel like I'm doing the same thing, right? But yeah, having people to tell you, yo, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
And you're on the right track. Just keep
Right.
going. Like, because oftentimes it does feel like, I wish I could be doing more out here, right?
Right.
But really, and also just seeing people's wealth and doing my own personal research around where do they make the most money. It's 30s and 40s and 50s.
Right.
People don't reach their pinnacle till then. And that's where I have to be more patient with myself, less hard on myself, to say, okay, we're getting there. You're not where you want to be, but you're getting there.
Well, I'm going to add my name to that list because, man, shout out to you, man. I'm super proud of you. Just having this conversation means so much to me because it gives me so much joy to know that you're 9 years younger and you already have a mindset of someone in my peer, more than my peers. And, things I've heard you say and think, like, I know your future is stupid bright, along with your Terrells and then the organization, because you already know things that I know people in my age group don't know or neglect to want to learn. And the fact that you already know it, you're ahead of the game. Damn, if I could turn back the clock in my 20s and be like, man, if I only knew what I know now type of mentality. The fact that I feel like and you're willing to continue to build on what you know and continue to have your success and not feel like you know it all. I see major success for you guys moving forward.
Being able to listen and be coachable is everything.
Yes,
for sure.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we're gonna get out here on this. Future Kings mentoring, Sean Spencer, Terrell Galloway, Israel Williams.
Yep.
Please look into these brothers on LinkedIn, Facebook. You tell them all the other platforms that I'm
Facebook, Instagram, website, LinkedIn. You can find us. My Future Kings email is sean@futurekingsmentoring.org. If you have any questions about the organization, if you want to support, just please reach out to us. Thank you.
And this is Financial Literacy with TC. Like always, please hit that subscribe button. Pour into the podcast, leave comments, likes. The goal is to have our people representing us, giving advice, talking about how we can build and grow as a community and a society. And we are doing that on my podcast, Financial Literacy with TC. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next week.
Sure. Thank you.